Welcome back, WNST. During the summer, I went a little quiet. I did a lot of writing. I did some Dear Orioles. I fell into a little bit of best of and bringing on some folks. And I kind of stayed away from some of my old friends. It's been a little while since I've had this guy on. I'm sure this is going to be my favorite segment of the week. We welcome Mike Harmon back on from Fox Sports Radio. He is the Swollen Dome out in Los Angeles, a Chicago transplant out there waiting for the National Football League all those years. And now you have, Harmon, the best team in the land, the Los Angeles Rams. I know they're excited about the Super Bowl out there in Los Angeles, right?
Well, trying to get it together. Obviously, a lot of crazy brought in on that defensive side of things. I've already said if they somehow go to Atlanta and they're the ones that are holding up Lombardi at the end, Wade Phillips should get a bust in Canton immediately for being able to keep these guys together, because it's an interesting group they've assembled. But offensively, I know everybody's seen the videos of McVay's memory and how crazy he is about the game and the playbook. But, I mean, defensively, they're going to beat some people up. Now, the Week 2 game against Arizona isn't exactly a fair barometer, because I think you, me, and 9 of our buddies just kind of running randomly around the field might have had as much success as Arizona did in that game. But you know what? You beat who's on the schedule, and let's face it, during the preseason they didn't do anything, right? They practiced, they did all their film study. We didn't see anything in the preseason. They walked through a half against the Raiders before it was the Russell Crowe, at my signal unleash hell, and well, here we are.
Well, I didn't see a lot of them, and they were in here for a couple of days of practice, and they played their B team against our A team, and our first preseason game was their first preseason game. So I feel like I don't know much about the Rams. I don't even know what you're talking about with the McVay thing. Is there a video I should see? Tell me about this. Educate.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple of Instagram and Twitter videos. I forget who the entity was that he did it with, but they brought up, I think it was 5 or 6 specific plays from seasons ago, like a couple from last year, but things when he was a coordinator back in Washington, like early times.
Just photographic memory kind of guy? Is that what it is?
I mean, they just set up like down distance and, scenarios. Like, all right, 2nd and 6 from the Washington 24. Oh, yeah, we ran this play, and it hit for a 26-yard, pass along the sideline. We complete with, the play call terminology. And he did this just without even blinking. Like each one.
Jim Palmer does that on the Oriole broadcast. He brings up, what he threw Al Kaline in a 2-1 pitch in Detroit in '68 at Tiger Stadium. He does that all the time,
Yeah, it's one of those things that we're seeing more and more evidence of it, right? LeBron James did it during the NBA Finals and going on through, and it's seemingly remarkable, and the number of athletes you've spoken to through the years, and certainly I've had this experience where there's specifics they remember. They may not remember all of them, but they remember a lot more than you'd ever think. So it's an impressive piece. I think the fun thing about it is they're not rounded into shape yet in terms of on-field chemistry in game situations. It's only going to get bigger. I mean, you got 7 for 159 from Brandon Cooks in week 2. They'd had a couple of near misses in week 1. They're going to hit on those downfield throws, and Todd Gurley is going to be an absolute monster when it's all said and done. And between that and a great defense, the excitement level here is huge because, well, right now a lot of people are anxious about the Dodgers and still counting days until LeBron James takes to a court.
Well, it's a fascinating week because it's LA, right? So I didn't even call you because of that. And by the way, I'm going to be out there for the Chargers game Christmas week. So if you want to participate in Carson, have you been to a game in Carson yet or no?
I went to one last year. It's a fun environment, man. It's close. It's intense. It is something like I think for anybody that can get out here, if you can, it's well worth the trip. Obviously, you have Los Angeles. By that point, you're looking at the beautiful weather and go to all the theme parks and bring me all your tourism dollars to help supplement my tax dollars.
I've never been inside the Coliseum. I've been inside the sports arena. I've seen Springsteen there, whatever, the Forum, some Pauley Pavilion I've been in. Dodger Stadium, I love it. You and I have been at Dodger Stadium together, but I've never gone to the Memorial Coliseum for anything ever. And I do want to get there before they stop playing, in it. We're going to be in Carson later on in the year. But this L.A. thing, it is fascinating to me for this week and to have you on, because I don't go right. I had Gary Miller on last week Cincinnati now from being out in L.A. But for all those years waiting for a football team, you and I, our relationship goes back to when there were no teams there and all that. Now that there's two teams and there's a good team, I've always wondered whether there would be any enthusiasm for it there outside of, well, we love the Raiders in L.A., which is what I always felt they loved.
No, right now it's still the Raiders number one by far, but the Rams, because they bring, and we talked about this, when the move was announced, Nestor, if you can win with some style, LA is going to love you. And they score points. They got swagger on defense. You got guys that'll hit any radio and TV show and give you a great sound bite. You got a bunch of guys that bring the attitude. And so I think that's one thing that LA is starting to embrace. And when you look at the Rams, the other thing, Eric Dickerson, ever since he helped, with our help on Fox Sports Radio, Jason Smith and I, in a landmark interview, helped to push Jeff Fisher out the door. There's Eric Dickerson jerseys everywhere. Like they probably sell more of his in the throwback jersey section of all sports stores across the country.
He has been martyred there, literally, huh? This is why I call you. I don't know this everywhere. Stuff. You're there.
It is absolutely crazy. And he does some stuff with our local LA affiliate, where they go around on Monday afternoons, to the local BJ's Brew House, right? It's a good restaurant when you're out here. It's one to check out. But they do a thing where they go out, and there's hundreds of people deep just to shake his hand. For help, one, with the Jeff Fisher thing and being honest about where the team was and what they needed to do, but people who remember the greatness from all those years ago. And now you got that bridge, and you got a guy like Todd Gurley, and it, some of the numbers and some of the runs start getting people excited. So they're starting to win the town. The Chargers, for all of what they might be, obviously still trying to catch up. Right now they're a distant third. Phillip Rivers gets people excited to a point, and I think not having Joey Bosa on the field for the first month plus of the season helps take a little wind out of the sail because you don't have as many of those highlights on the defensive side of the ball.
It's funny, you say Chargers distant third. I'm thinking they're like fifth behind USC and UCLA, and if Pepperdine played football, they'd probably be ahead of them too. Mike Harmon is our guy.
I'll tell you what, though, Nestor. I'll tell you what, the way USC and UCLA's seasons have started, nobody wants to talk about it. That's just a taboo subject around here. They've been so bad. Wondering if the other night it was the wondering if Clay Helton was going to get the tarmac firing after a loss to Texas. So I mean, you got that. You got UCLA getting drummed on a weekly basis. Now there's time for Chip Kelly again because once LeBron James starts, nobody's going to pay attention to how the season finishes.
Yeah, you mentioned Texas getting the better of them, and Maryland beat Texas 2 weeks ago, and I'm thinking, could Maryland go out to L.A. and do that against the Pac-10? I don't know. Maybe that's where we are at college football. Mike Harmon is our guest. He is Swollen Dome out on Twitter and the tag team partner with our pal Jason Smith out at Fox Sports Radio in the evenings. They've added another hour to you, right? You got to add that to your Twitter. You're only 3 hours on Twitter right now.
Oh, I need to make sure to update that because if they're going to get that extra hour out of me, I got to make sure that everybody knows that. I thought I edited it earlier, but we'll get back into that.
Everybody needs an extra hour of you, Harmon, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I figured I like the sound of my own voice, and evidently the bosses did their due diligence and decided that we needed that. There you go. It's updated now.
Before I go back to football, all right, and I will, and I'll get to baseball with you, but just the LeBron thing. Can you give me some tea leaves on that and how that's worked out? Because the Dodgers and the Angels are playing, until they roll the ball out in a couple of weeks, but I would think that whatever the Rams and whatever anybody's doing out there, the LeBron thing, and I saw Ballmer on Bill Maher the other night. Maher was giving him a hard time about, well, if you care so much about the Clippers, how did LeBron wind up being a Laker? It's certainly going to make the Clippers second page news all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, the Clippers had their 5-year run. Ralph Lawler going to call it a career. 80 years old. He's been with the Clippers 40 years, watching a lot of bad basketball. I mean, you had Lob City, and now here's the interesting thing, though, is that you have this year where, look, if they win 30 games, I don't know what the over/under is in Vegas, but they're not going to be good. But they're working to build their own place. They don't want to be the stepbrother or whatever term you want to use. Some of them aren't politically correct, so I don't know what I can use in that regard anymore. But the fact is that, they want their own place. They want to build their own identity away from what the Lakers are and what Staples Center has been. And next year, he's going to have mountains of cash, luxury, salary cap money and luxury tax room and all that fun stuff to spend on players. Not that he doesn't have $20 billion in the bank, but the idea is that maybe with LeBron here, there's someone that wants to be the competitor, that's someone that wants to be around and be the antithesis of that, knowing they're going to get a lot of run. So I think that's what he's banking on. Unfortunately, you had a 5-year run where you had guys that were your elite players, that they were all great individuals, but they didn't get along. They didn't get along, and we're pretty sure, as more came out in the wash, that teaming with Chris Paul was a very difficult proposition for all of those guys. So going forward, it's the waiting on LeBron. Anytime he picks up a basketball at a gym around here, it's front page news. Now you got Kevin Durant, circulating a little bit, talking about how much he loves watching Aaron Donald and fueling those fires. So certainly, so certainly the excitement level is already heading towards next year. Wow, can they add another monster piece? I know Jimmy Butler's mad at the Timberwolves, even though he likes Thibodeau. He doesn't like management, so what happens there? So, you've got a superstar still circling around, and with the Dodgers bullpen probably being the thing that would keep them from maybe hoisting the first World Series in 30 years. It's been rough. The NL West, every day there's a new leader in the clubhouse, and trying to get starters to go 6 innings has been a tough proposition. The Angels, other than the Shohei Ohtani, and why doesn't anybody like Mike Trout? Those are the only 2 storylines there. They've been irrelevant in terms of wins, losses, and chasing for anything for months. So you turn to football, and even then, it's still a new feel to have the NFL team back. And the college teams, even if everybody's wearing their jerseys and putting banners and flying the car flags, those seasons are already done for all intents and purposes. So now it's LeBron City all the way.
Well, it's going to be a chase to the finish line on the baseball side. But back to LeBron just momentarily.
Yeah.
What are the expectations there for him staying, how long he'd be there, and winning championships? I don't know that the Lakers are going to win the championship this year, but I don't know that I bet against LeBron and any 4 guys that are out on the court because he's been doing it in the other conference. I just think in the other conference, that's a tall task what he signed on for there. I don't know that he's going to have the same success there. And if he does, well then, he's LeBron, right? He wasn't supposed to go back in Cleveland and win a championship, but he did with the cast of characters that he did. I'll be shocked if they're playing past the second round, though. I really will be.
Yeah, I think part of it is when you look at the East for years, you just dominated. You had to go through 1, maybe 2 teams, right? Here, there's a lot more cannibalism in the Western Conference, but you don't have a lot of great teams. You got a lot of superstars, got a lot of guys who get people's tongues wagging. But I think overall, when you break it down, look how muddled the middle was this past year. You had Golden State and Houston, and then you had 9 teams that were essentially the same. Lakers can potentially leapfrog all of them with LeBron James in the mix. Golden State, seeds of discontent are there, right? They got a little bit chirpy, even though they won. There was some chirping about locker room dissatisfaction here and there. David West making sure before he retired to throw some gasoline on the locker room there in terms of how guys were getting along. And after a while, even the best bands like the Beatles, they break up. So you're looking at Golden State might be vulnerable. With Houston, do they ever win a big game? So, suddenly LeBron James with his band of Merriman, and don't count out the fact that you might have a couple of guys that force their way out of their respective homes during the season. This might not be the roster they get to December with, let alone towards a title chase come April. So I think there's a lot of enthusiasm in that regard. Ticket prices on the secondary market show it. Just to get in is going to be $100 a head, right? Face value is only going to be $50 for those 300 levels, but you're looking at 2 to 3 times space for any of the big time opponents coming in, and certainly you want to go in the first 2 weeks. Prepare to pay a lot to look through your binoculars to see Jack Nicholson.
He is Mike Harmon. He is Swollen Dome out on Twitter and as well as at Fox Sports Radio. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're downloading the Rofo app and using that when you're pumping your gas. You'll get your fried chicken, your Western fries for free, or you can use the Rofo rewards card and have that in your wallet as well. Also brought to you by the Lee Tessier team, Baltimore's premier realty team, and the folks that I trust with my real estate transactions with over 50 years of experience helping local buyers and sellers just like you. They're there for you. Go to leetessier.com if you're buying or selling your home. Also going to tell you about Cole Roofing and our Thursday morning charity and community series. Bill Cole will be here this week talking about the Broncos and the Ravens, but on Thursday mornings I get together with anyone out there telling a good story. If you got a 501c3, if you're having a 5K or you're having a 10K or you're doing a run or an event or you're bringing some people together for a good cause, we want to tell that story. It's all brought to you by our friends at Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy. Mike Harmon is our guest. He's out in Los Angeles doing all things Fox Sports Radio, but he is at heart a Chicago guy. Little baseball for you here as the Cubs sort of round this thing out. I think the Cubs are going to be in the World Series this year, and I know it's a lot more quiet than it was with Eddie Vedder and a couple of years ago and Jake Arrieta and all that, but I think the Cubs are going to surprise some teams in October, and this has been one of those sort of quiet years where they might not get to 100 wins, and it certainly wasn't easy and it wasn't runaway, but I think they're going to run away in October and make some noise.
Well, that's just it. Can you get healthy in time for the run, right? You had Bryant hurt. You got Brandon Morrow on the comeback. I think that's the guy to watch in terms of bullpen work, much like we've watched here in Los Angeles for the Cubs. I think it's been much the same, trying to figure out exactly how to solidify and get through those final frames along the way. Joe Maddon taking a lot of heat based on his bullpen usage and certainly some of the in-game managerial decisions. Quickly,
it's amazing. Joe Maddon's a village idiot now. All of a sudden, sure, right?
No, that's right. That's right. A couple of decisions go wrong, and suddenly you're an idiot. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't have a rabbit's foot or something in an orifice when they won at all. But certainly, every decision that you'd second guess turned out right that year, and certainly for this year at 87 and 80, 95 wins maybe by the time they get here. Right, they're up towards 90 as you and I speak. That the fact is that they're a deep team and they can score runs in bunches. You got guys with timely hits that made some key moves at the trade deadline and so on to help solidify things. Milwaukee's been pesky, but all the teams in the West have some fatal flaws that'll do them in. Atlanta, I think, too young. So the opportunity is certainly there for the Cubs to raise another flag, much to my chagrin as a White Sox homer for all these years in the final year of Ken Harrelson. Wish they could have given him a better effort. But, you look at the way this is played out. Everybody wants to go after Madden. All they do is win. You can't win the World Series every year. All you need to do is look at some of these historic teams that only walked away with one title or two titles, whatever. Hell, look at what Atlanta was working with all those years. Sometimes the fickle hand of baseball fate doesn't go your way.
I'm in Baltimore, dude. I'm keenly aware.
Yeah, no,
I didn't know it was possible to lose 120 games in a year, but they're going to try like hell. They really are.
They are definitely going to try. I mean, we do keep an eye on we do have an Orioles tracker as part of the show. Because of my love for all you guys that I know there in the Baltimore media world and people I've met coming through town through the years. Just painful. I feel you. I mean, we're not much better on the south side of Chicago. We got a lot of hope, except, when hope comes arriving in a 98-mile-an-hour fireballer who immediately then tears up his arm and has to have surgery. There's really only so much you can do.
They're never going to get over the ghost of Chris Sale cutting up those jerseys, are they?
That is one of the great moments in baseball history, and if I could have gotten a piece of those, man, I tell you what, that would have been legendary without a doubt. But yeah, it's tough, man. You go through the total rebuild. I know you've seen this. For a couple of years, you play the are we in, are we out game, thinking you're just good enough to keep people happy and coming to the park. But after a while, people stop paying money for mediocrity. And even with, you look at the White Sox, it's been short of mediocrity. Some great young talent that you get excited about, but it hasn't translated into wins. So, especially with the Cubs having their big run, and I don't know if you've seen all the renovations they've done around Wrigleyville and how built up that is. I was just back in town in Chicago 2-3 weeks ago, and just they built a park.
It's a
out
city,
there.
yeah. I mean, I was there 2 years ago for Pearl Jam, right before they won the World Series, and it was obvious how many of the parking garages were going up and the bars, and it was a big dust bowl 2 years ago. And I said, when this thing's completed, it's going to be sort of this mecca in Chicago for baseball, as it always has been. But it's a day trip now. You don't go for the game. You go in the morning. You come home at midnight.
No, that's just it, right? I mean, the bars have always been there, but now you add in a bunch of shops, you add in a bunch of little restaurants. There's a couple of really nice places right across the street to just go sit and have a good hang with a huge beer selection. I mean, and then there's the park with a bunch of just bent, a lawn to go and kids kicking soccer balls at 9:00 at night on a summer evening, and people sitting sipping a latte on a first date. We kind of listened in and had some fun with that. But, it's all that kind of thing where you've made it more than just a baseball stadium. It's part of it's always been part of the neighborhood there, but now it's really integrated on a whole other level. And the White Sox are watching that going, man, here we are over here. They've retrofitted guaranteed rate field. That does not roll off the tongue really well into a nice ballpark. Remember, they passed on Camden Yards because the city wouldn't fund it. That the effect is it's a nice ballpark now, but it's still, down the ways away from pretty much everything on an island by itself on the south side of Chicago.
Kind of like Camden Yards downtown, by the way, too. I mean, you're telling the same story. There's nothing around Camden Yards but Camden Yards. People don't want to come. People in the outside the city don't want to come in. Between the squeegee kids and the beggars out on the corners, and 100 and however many teen losses. I'm very, very concerned about the viability of the baseball team here, Mike, moving forward, and I talk about it a lot. I know you see me out on the web screaming about it a little bit, but this is the beginning of how you lose a baseball franchise. It really is.
No, that's just it, right? You stop losing that support. And in a city like Baltimore, in a city like Chicago, that money can be allocated to so many other things that are more pressing issues, and certainly both our cities have been in the news for a lot of the wrong reasons for years on end. So, getting approval for the next ballpark renovation or expansion or beautification.
Yeah, it's over.
Right. It's a losing proposition.
And I remember 25 years ago when I was on the radio, I was the bleeding heart. We've got to build it. We've got to spend public money. And then you see these jerks that get a hold of your public money like Peter Angelos for 25 years and then use the public as an ATM. I don't know. Camden Yards has not been a good investment for Baltimore or for Maryland. It just hasn't. As a baseball stadium, as to what it was supposed to be, it was for 5 years. And then this creep got a hold of it 20 years ago. For 20 years now, it has been not an economic boom for our city at all. At all.
Well, and that's generally been the rule, though, Nestor. I mean, the studies all bear that out. In that once public money gets into the mix,
it's a scam, right? It's a scam,
right? There's so much for mismanagement and over commitment and just a cost going out of control. That when this LA thing went down, right? They could have a museum for the number of proposed stadiums.
Oh, yeah.
That were out here for the last 25 years. I kid you not. I've seen so many different artist renditions and 3D models and whatever. And I'm a newbie here. I mean, I'm only here a decade. I mean, you got a whole other decade of people sitting there, building what's essentially now antiquated Lego kits of stadiums that, now that you got this thing saying, yeah, I'll come in and I'll build it myself because it's worth it. When Stan Kroenke comes in with his giant checkbook and just says, let me relocate the team. We can do this. And it's already a boon. You look at the property values all around Inglewood and the area where you had some depressed, neighborhoods and whatever. They're all being rebuilt. There's all new shops. There's a lot of excitement for new money, and if you do the flyover, you see the progress that's been made. There's optimism, and why? Because you had a private individual getting the work done. Not that there weren't tax concessions and a lot of legalese that went into it, but in the end, you didn't say, "Give me $1 billion for a stadium." That goes a long way.
And the sun will be shining in Los Angeles. Mike Harmon is our guest. He's at Fox Sports Radio. You can find him at Swollen Dome out on Twitter. We don't get together often, but when we do, it's always fun. Anything you want to say on the NFL or anything on the Ravens here as we entertain the Broncos? Because you talked a lot about the Rams. We didn't get a chance to go around the league and all the missed kicks and the tie games and the crazy protect the quarterback flag football stuff. The NFL has started. We're 2 weeks into this, and great storylines, I think, almost everywhere, Mike.
Oh, no, that's just it. Even the worst of the storylines, they're all still in between the white lines of the field and the excitement. You know, most of the teams still have hope, right? You got the Browns, 2 weeks in that are getting it done in a lot of ways and showing that they're serious about football. And, while they bid adieu to Josh Gordon, they know they've done everything they can for him, right? They just needed to concentrate on football, not a Dorsey guy. You move forward. Your Ravens, I had predicted them before the season. I think they're AFC title game material. The loss of Mosley in week 2, really, I think I threw something at the television as soon as he went down because, I don't like being wrong.
That's my guy, too, by the way. Yes, I love CJ.
Yeah, but Cincinnati's an interesting team, not just coming off that, but 34 points back-to-back week. You look at the efficiency of Dalton under Laser. I think it's 31 touchdowns, 9 interceptions in the 16 games they've been together. I think you'll take that kind of production. Now it's just a matter of can Marvin Lewis win when the money's on the line. You go through Aaron Rodgers playing on one leg. If it's just a sprain, great. I'm still wondering how doped up and what was going on after that Bears game because he looked like a guy who was ready to say goodbye to everybody as he did the handshake line. Patrick Mahomes may walk on water for his next trick. The Steelers all hate each other, so that's fun. I mean,
that's great, isn't it? The Steelers thing. There's nothing juicier than the Steelers stink.
Oh,
right?
You guys have to be loving this. I mean, at some point, these guys are just going to have a battle royale in the middle of Heinz Field.
Hey, man, we'll be listening out at Fox Sports Radio and following you at the Swollen Dome out on Twitter. Hope to see you when I'm out there for Christmas week and the Chargers and the Ravens. So circle that on your calendar. Bring your daughter along. We'll make a little afternoon in Carson for the holidays.
We'll light it up, brother.
Mike Harmon, the Swollen Dome out on Twitter and at Fox Sports Radio, joining us here. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox digitally every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. The morning newspaper also brought to you by Laurel and our friends at the Maryland Jockey Club. Laurel Park Racing this weekend. They got the DeFrancis Dash going on. It is the Fall Festival happening. And, of course, the Maryland Million on October 20th at Laurel Park. Any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colossus will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. Driving you home, it is the SSV on WNST. Also heard on Sunday morning. Sunday morning, I'll be getting ready for Broncos and Ravens, getting you ready all week long. You can find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.